Mom, did you take the scallions from the fridge? When my daughter-in-law tagged me in the family chat, I was having afternoon tea with some old friends. My heart sank as I remembered using the scallions she'd left in the fridge to make myself a bowl of plain noodle soup. Before I could explain, my son, Lou Simming, jumped into the chat. Mom, Wan bought those organic scallions specially. They cost 5 UN a bunch. We need rules in this house. You can't keep taking other people's things without asking. My daughter-in-law immediately sent a smug emoji and added sarcastically, "You keep saying you're here to help with the baby, yet you even steal a bunch of scallions. How is that any different from having a thief in the family?" I stared at the screen, transferred her 500 yen, and asked, "I'm paying you 500, is that enough?" She accepted the money instantly, then started whining in the group chat. "Honey, deal with your mom. Don't let her think having money makes her queen of this house." I didn't say another word. I packed my bags, returned to my countryside villa, and reclaimed the apartment they were living in. I wanted to see how comfortable life would be without this so-called scallion thief. The rideshare had barely left the city when my phone started vibrating nonstop. My son Lou Siming's name flashed on the screen, and I answered. His irritated voice came through immediately. "Mom, we only said a few things. Do you really need to run away from home over this?" Lou Siming still thought his mother was overreacting, turning one bunch of scallions into a family-wide spectacle. Watching the scenery race past the window, I calmly said, "I'm going back to my own home. How is that running away?" Lou Siming sighed, his voice full of blame. "Don't you realize the relatives will laugh at us? Wan is sensitive. As the elder, can't you be more understanding? And it was only a bunch of scallions. Sending 500 wan was clearly meant to humiliate her." His twisted logic actually made me laugh. "She called me a thief and you want me to be understanding? Lou Siming, don't forget I paid cash for your apartment, bought you your car, and give you 20,000 yen every month. I ate 5 yuan's worth of scallions, and somehow I'm the thief?" Lou Siming raised his voice. "Mom, can you stop bringing up money? We're family. Why keep score? Wan is right. You're controlling and always act like we owe you. Come back, apologize to her, and we'll put this behind us." I'd cared for my son's child for free for 3 years while my daughter-in-law constantly picked on me. "Chen Guifan, how many times have I told you? The baby's milk must be exactly 37 degrees, not 1 degree hotter. Are you deaf or are you deliberately fighting me?" She found fault with everything and ordered me around like a servant. For my son's sake, I kept giving in. Now he wanted me to apologize to the woman who called me a thief. I couldn't be bothered to say another word. I hung up. Before I could put down my phone, WeChat alerts started pouring in. I opened the family chat and found an 800-word message from Lin Wan. "Aunts and uncles, I had no choice but to say this here. My mother-in-law got angry over some scallions and stormed out. While cleaning, I found my grandmother's gold necklace missing. No strangers have visited, and she left carrying several bags and looking nervous. I hate to suspect her, but that necklace was my grandmother's keepsake." The family chat exploded. My husband's aunt was the first to accuse me. "Guifan, how could you do something like that? You always looked so respectable. How could you be a thief?" His uncle immediately joined in. "Let's keep this inside the family. Don't call the police yet. When she comes back, search her bags and we'll know." I don't want to make this bigger, but she's so stubborn. She threw money at me earlier and bragged that she had plenty. If she's so rich, why would she steal from me? They were trying to brand me a thief and make sure I could never hold my head up again. "Lin Wan, accusations require evidence. When did I ever take your gold necklace?" I replied in the group. To my shock, Lou Siming jumped in against me. "Mom, stop being stubborn. That necklace means everything to Wan. Just return it. We promise we won't blame you." Seeing the son I'd carried for 9 months accuse me felt like being hit in the chest with a hammer. Then Lou Siming sent a voice message, sounding exhausted and helpless. Deep down, he still believed his mother loved taking petty freebies. "You've always liked getting little things for free. You even take extra plastic bags at the supermarket. You must have made a bad choice this time. We understand. Just return the necklace and stop making this difficult for everyone." I shook with rage. I took advantage of people. I gave them 20,000 won a month and brought my own reusable bag to save 20 cents at the store. Yet in his eyes, that somehow proved I had stolen the necklace. Then his aunt added fuel to the fire. "Guifan, Lou Siming is giving you a graceful way out. Take it. You're old enough to know better. Ruining your reputation this late in life would be humiliating." I gripped my phone and said each word slowly. "I'll say this one last time. I didn't take it. If you don't believe me, call the police." Lin Wan immediately posted a screenshot and replied arrogantly, "Mom, you brought this on yourself." Looking at that screenshot, the last bit of warmth in my heart died. I closed WeChat and called a private investigator. Soon the car stopped outside my countryside villa. The weeds in the yard had grown calf-high. Since my husband died, I'd spent 3 years in the city caring for Lou Siming, leaving this home empty. I'd barely unpacked when a harsh car horn sounded outside. The BMW I'd bought Lou Siming with cash pulled up at the gate as if it owned the place. I asked coldly, "Why are you here? Did the police discover the necklace in my possession?" Lin Wan rolled her eyes and walked straight inside with the baby. "Mom, why hold such a grudge? Reporting you was only meant to scare you. It's not like we'd actually let them arrest you. We came to take you home. That home has no room for a thief like me." I stood firmly in the doorway. Frowning, Lou Siming walked over and reached for my arm. "Mom, will you stop making a scene?" He believed his mother was merely sulking, giving up a comfortable city life to hide in the middle of nowhere, where she couldn't even order food delivery. "How will you live out here? Besides, if you leave, who's going to cook for Wan and watch the baby? Doesn't she say my cooking is unhygienic? Doesn't she say my childcare methods are outdated? Perfect, you can do it yourselves." Lin Wan looked around the house and greed flashed in her eyes. "Honey, I actually think Mom living here is a great idea. Lu Siming looked completely confused. Honey, what are you talking about? Lin Wan smiled sweetly at me. The air pollution in the city has been awful, and the baby keeps coughing. The countryside has clean air and plenty of space. Why don't the three of us move in? You can clear out the storage room downstairs for yourself, so you'll be nearby when the baby needs a bottle at night. You're moving into my house and putting me in the storage room? This 3-story villa had 6 bedrooms. Yet she expected me to sleep in a 5-square-meter storage room with no window. Lin Wan said as if it were perfectly reasonable. The baby needs a nursery, I need a yoga room, and my husband needs a study. The other 2 bedrooms are for my mom and relatives when they visit. That only leaves the storage room. Surely you can handle one small sacrifice? I'm doing this for the baby. You claim to love your grandson, yet you won't even give up a room? I ignored her and asked Lu Siming whether he agreed with her. Lu Siming avoided my eyes and rubbed his nose. Deep down, he thought his wife made perfect sense. Having his mother sleep in the storage room didn't seem like a big deal. A big bedroom is wasted on one person anyway. Clean up the storage room and it'll be fine. Didn't you used to sleep on a brick bed? Rage shot from my feet straight to my head. This was the son I'd raised for 30 years. Just to please his wife, he wanted me sleeping in a room not even a dog would stay in. I pointed at the door and ordered them out of my house. Lin Wan's face darkened. She shoved the baby into Lu Siming's arms and sneered. Your house? Get this straight, Mom. Lu Siming's father left this house behind, so Siming owns part of it too. We're not going anywhere. She dropped onto the couch and crossed her legs. Not only are we staying, you're bringing out the deed right now and transferring the house to Lu Siming. Otherwise, one day you'll lose your mind and give it away to some stranger. I trembled with anger and pointed at her, warning her not to push me too far. I'm bullying you? I haven't even settled the score over the necklace you stole. Transfer the house to me today, or I'll take you to court and have you thrown in jail. As she spoke, she grabbed something from the coffee table and smashed it onto the floor. It shattered with a sharp crack. I stared at the pieces. It was my late husband's most treasured clay teapot. What have you done? Lin Wan casually dusted off her hands. My hand slipped. It's just some cheap clay pot. Why are you making such a scene? Don't scare my son. Lu Siming quickly held the wailing baby and started blaming me. Mom, you know Wan Wan has a temper. Why provoke her? It's only a teapot. Tomorrow I'll order you an identical one online for 9.9 yuan, shipping included. With red-rimmed eyes, I told Lu Siming it was his father's keepsake and worth 200,000 yuan. At the mention of 200,000 yuan, Lin Wan's eyes flickered. 200,000? Have you lost your mind over money? Trying to scam me, old woman? I wouldn't pay you 20 yuan, let alone 200,000. The gold necklace you stole was worth 30,000. Consider the debt settled. The more she spoke, the more self-righteous she became. She even kicked aside the pieces I'd just gathered. Let me make this clear. You're transferring this house whether you like it or not. Say one word against me and you'll never see my son again. Lu Siming, take the baby outside. I don't want him breathing in this house's pathetic poverty. From now on, that old woman doesn't touch my son without my permission. Lu Siming held the baby, looking uncomfortable. Honey, Mom is still his biological grandmother. Lin Wan shot him a vicious glare. So what? With a thief for a grandmother, our son will be mocked at school. Lu Siming, defend her today and we're getting divorced tomorrow. Lu Siming immediately backed down. Divorce was his greatest fear, so he could only turn around and blame me. Mom, look what you've turned this into. Just bring out the deed and stop upsetting Wan Wan. The house will be mine someday anyway. What difference does it make if you give it to me now? I slowly rose from the floor. A shard had cut my knee and blood was seeping out, but I couldn't feel any pain. You're using your father's keepsake and your own son to force me to surrender the house? Mom, don't make it sound so ugly. We're simply allocating resources efficiently. What does an old woman need such a huge house for? Keep being this selfish, and when you're too old to move, who do you think will clean up after you? I looked at the shamelessly self-righteous man before me, and suddenly felt like I didn't know him at all. This was the son I'd sacrificed everything for, even giving up my retirement to support him. I took a deep breath and forced down the rage boiling in my chest. Fine. You want the deed? It's in the drawer of the upstairs bedroom. Lin Wan's eyes lit up. She shoved the baby into my arms and dragged Lu Siming upstairs. But there was no deed upstairs, only the home sale agreement and vehicle repossession notice I just placed there. A few minutes later, Lin Wan stormed downstairs with Lu Siming right behind her, pale with fury and clutching the documents. Mom, what is this supposed to mean? Lu Siming slammed the 2 papers onto the coffee table. Lin Wan pointed at me and erupted. You crazy old hag, have you lost your mind? What gives you the right to sell my house and take back my BMW? I calmly placed my grandson on the couch. I changed my mind, is that a problem? Lu Siming rushed over and shook me wildly. Are you insane? You've taken away everything we had. Do you expect the 3 of us to starve? I shoved him away with all my strength. I'm forcing you? I gave you 20,000 yuan every month and you spent it on designer bags and fancy restaurants. I ate 5 yuan's worth of scallions and you called me a thief. Now you're claiming I'm the one forcing you? Lin Wan pulled a document from her bag and flung it straight into my face. Lu Siming, stop wasting your breath on this crazy old woman. She can't stand seeing us happy. Sign it. I bent down and picked up the document. Across the top, it clearly read, Agreement to sever family ties and transfer inheritance. It stated that I voluntarily surrendered all my property to Lu Siming and that he would have no responsibility for me from that day forward. Lu Siming stood beside her, watching me coldly. In his mind, his mother had turned heartless first, so he had no choice but to do this. Mom, you forced me into this. If you don't give back the house and car, sign the papers today. After that, whether you live or die has nothing to do with me. I stared at the agreements and suddenly laughed, even as tears rolled down my face. Lu Siming, you'd abandon your own mother for money? Lu Siming clenched his teeth. You're the one who stopped treating us like family first. Just then, Lin Wan pulled out her phone and expertly opened a livestream app. Everyone, look. This is the evil mother-in-law who stole from her daughter-in-law and doesn't care whether her children live or die. She's living it up in a country villa while ignoring our family of 3. Thousands of viewers flooded in and the comments raced by, all of them attacking me. You old witch, look at what everyone is saying about you. If you don't sign today, I'll ruin your reputation in front of the whole country. You'll be ashamed to show your face anywhere. She forced the pen into my hand. Mom, just sign it. Stop fighting. You can't beat us. I looked down at the pen, then at the vicious comments filling the screen, and slowly straightened my back. Fine. Since you want to settle everything in front of the whole country, let's settle it properly. I opened my handbag and pulled out a thick document envelope. Lin Wan's expression froze when she saw it. Everyone watch closely. She's trying to deny it. Here come the excuses. I ignored her. I took a stack of photos and a USB drive from the envelope and held them up to the camera. These are security camera stills from Hengtong Pawn Shop downtown 3 days ago. You pawned that gold necklace for 50,000 yuan. Here's the pawn ticket with your signature and fingerprint. The USB has the full video. You sold the necklace to buy a limited edition bag, then told the family chat I stole it. Is that extortion or a false accusation? Lin Wan completely panicked. The hand holding her phone shook violently. You're framing me! The comments instantly turned against her, accusing Lin Wan of blaming others for her own crime. Seeing things go wrong, Lu Siming rushed over to grab the phone and end the stream. I caught his wrist and stared him down. Don't turn it off. Since you started this, let everyone see the whole story. I pulled 2 property deeds from the bottom of the envelope and showed them to the camera. Look carefully. This deed is for the country villa where I live. This one is for the luxury apartment downtown where they live. I paid cash for both, and both are in my name. You have 3 days to leave the apartment. Otherwise, I'll call the police and have you removed. Lu Siming dropped to his knees. Terrified and regretful, he only wanted his mother to forgive him. Mom, I was wrong. Wan made me do it. You can't throw us out. Where can we go with a child? Lin Wan forgot all about the live stream. Her phone fell to the floor as she rushed over and clung to my leg. Mom, I was wrong. I'll never do it again. I'll repay the necklace money. Please don't throw us out. I looked down at the 2 of them begging at my feet and felt absolutely nothing. I coldly told them it was too late, then shoved Lin Wan away with my foot. I picked up the phone and gave the camera a small smile. That's all for today's live stream. Thank you for witnessing this. I ended the stream and the screen went black. I immediately called the police. Soon, a patrol car pulled up outside the villa, siren blaring. 2 officers entered, looked at the shattered clay teapot covering the floor, then at the pale-faced Lin Wan. I stepped forward and handed them the purchase receipt and appraisal certificate. Officers, this woman deliberately smashed the clay teapot my late husband left me. Here are the auction house's appraisal and purchase records. It's worth 200,000 yuan. An officer examined the documents and frowned. 200,000 yuan makes this a serious property damage case. Did you smash it? Lin Wan trembled all over and shook her head repeatedly. No, I bumped it by accident. Officer, we're family, mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. This can't count as property damage. She's only trying to scare me. I answered without changing expression. We may be in-laws, but the law deals in facts. She deliberately smashed it to threaten me into transferring the villa. I have security footage. I pointed to the camera in the corner of the living room. I hadn't stayed there in a long time, but the electricity was still on. I never expected the camera to come in handy today. Lin Wan followed my finger, saw the camera, and collapsed to the floor. There's footage? Then you'll need to come to the station with us. The 2 officers stepped forward and escorted Lin Wan away. She completely broke down. Lu Siming, save me. I don't want to go to jail. Our baby can't grow up without a mother. Sweating with panic, Lu Siming rushed over to block the officers. Officers, please work something out. We'll pay, whatever it takes. He turned around and dropped to his knees before me again. Mom, I'm begging you, withdraw the complaint. If Wan goes to jail, her life is over and so is our child's. Are you really going to be this heartless? I looked down at him. I'm heartless? When she accused me of stealing, did she care about my reputation? When you forced me to sign an agreement cutting off our relationship, did you care how devastated I was? Lu Siming, you're both adults. Your actions have consequences. An officer pushed Lu Siming aside and warned him coldly. Interfering with police work can get you detained. Move aside. Lin Wan was soon taken into the patrol car. As the siren faded away, only Lu Siming and my crying grandson remained in the living room. Lu Siming sat on the floor, completely lost. He glared at me with bloodshot eyes, convinced his mother had destroyed his family. Are you happy now? You sent your own daughter-in-law to jail. How can you be so cruel? I walked to the sofa, picked up my grandson, whose voice was hoarse from crying, and gently patted his back. If I weren't ruthless, how could I repay all your scheming? I opened the drawer beneath the coffee table, took out a stack of bank statements, and threw them in Lu Siming's face. Do you think she's the only one facing charges? Lu Siming, look carefully at this! With trembling hands, Lu Siming picked up the statements. One glance drained even more color from his face than Lin Wan's. These are statements from my pension account. Only you knew the password. Over the past 3 years, you secretly transferred 800,000 yuan into your mother-in-law's account. Lu Siming, you used my retirement money to support Lin Wan's entire family. Would you call that theft? Lu Siming's hand jerked, scattering the statements across the floor. He scrambled over and clung to my leg, terrified and remorseful, desperate for his mother to spare him. Mom, I was wrong. Wan said her brother needed money for a house. I had no choice, so I shoved him away with my foot. Having no choice means you can steal your mother's retirement money? I've already contacted a lawyer. If the $800,000 isn't returned by tomorrow, the next patrol car will be coming for you. The lawyer arrived early the next morning. Lu Siming sat on the sofa with dark circles under his eyes. He clearly hadn't slept. The lawyer placed an eviction notice and a formal demand letter in front of him. Mr. Lu, this is the notice to vacate the downtown property within 3 days. You also transferred 800,000 yuan belonging to Ms. Chen without permission. If it isn't returned today, we will formally file suit. Lu Siming buried his head in his hands, yanking at his hair in agony. I can't pay it back. The money went toward Wan's brother's apartment. Where am I supposed to find 800,000 yuan? He suddenly looked up, his eyes bloodshot. Mom, are you trying to ruin me? You took back the house and the car, and now you still want 800,000 yuan? You might as well end me yourself. I lifted my teacup and took a calm sip. That would be illegal, so no thanks. But paying back what you owe is only fair. If you were bold enough to play the big spender with my money, you should be bold enough to face the consequences. Lu Siming suddenly snapped. He rushed to the table, grabbed a fruit knife, and pressed it to his neck. Fine. If I can't repay you, I'll pay with my life. Isn't money all you care about? Will you finally be happy if I drop right here in front of you? The lawyer jumped and instinctively stepped back. I didn't even blink. Lu Siming, do you think you're still 3, throwing tantrums to skip preschool? At 10, you refused to eat because I wouldn't buy you a game console. Now you're 30 and threatening me with your life. Fine. If you go through with it, I'll write off the 800,000 and give you a grand funeral. The hand holding the knife shook violently. The blade left a thin red mark on his neck, but in the end, he couldn't bring himself to press harder. Mom, I'm begging you, give me a way out. I'll borrow money, take out loans, and repay it slowly. Please? Looking at him in that pathetic state, I felt nothing but sadness. You make your own way out. Nobody hands it to you. You have 2 choices. Wait for the court summons, get blacklisted as a judgment debtor, and ruin your future, or go to your mother-in-law and get the money back. Lu Siming froze. He knew how fierce his mother-in-law was. Once money entered her pocket, it never came back out. She'll never give it back. I stood up and straightened my clothes. That's your problem. Counselor, let's go to your office and discuss the details. I turned toward the door. Just as I was about to step outside, Lu Siming called after me. Mom, if I get the money back, will you drop the lawsuit? I stopped without turning around. Depends on how you handle it. 3 days later, the downtown apartment was repossessed. Lu Siming was thrown onto the street with only a few changes of clothes. Too afraid to come find me in the countryside, he went to stay with his mother-in-law. Meanwhile, the private investigator I hired sent me daily videos of the 2 sides tearing each other apart. In one video, Lu Siming begged desperately in the rundown hallway outside the Lin family's apartment. Mom, give me back the 800,000. My mother is really suing me. If I get blacklisted, I won't even be allowed on a bullet train. Lin Wan's mother planted her hands on her hips and spat right in his face. Get lost, you useless loser. My daughter is still in detention, and instead of paying to help her, you come asking me for money? You willingly gave that 800,000 to buy my son's apartment. Why should I return it? Now get out. Driven into a corner, Lu Siming grabbed his mother-in-law by the collar. That's a lie. That was my mother's retirement money. Your whole family bled me dry. Give it back. Just then, his brother-in-law charged out and kicked him down the stairs. Lu Siming hit the ground bleeding and wailed like a child. Watching him humiliate himself on video, I felt nothing. Soon, news of Lin Wan's imprisonment spread across the entire county. Lu Siming became a complete social outcast. Friends and relatives avoided him, and his in-laws threw him out without even offering him a sip of water. With nowhere left to go, he blamed everything on me. In his mind, I had destroyed his family and cut off his only chance to survive. He spent his days lurking outside my country house like a starving stray dog. At first, he only crouched outside the iron fence during the day, staring into the yard with a chilling look. Whenever Xiaobao and I sat in the sun or picked vegetables, he watched without moving, muttering the same words over and over. Mom, I was wrong. Just give me something to eat. You can't be this heartless. Xiaobao was still young, but the sight of him was so frightening that the child buried himself in my arms and clutched my clothes. Grandma, I'm scared. That man scares me. I held Xiaobao close, gently patted his back, and shot an icy glance at Lu Siming beyond the fence. I knew he was testing my limits, hoping a pitiful act would win my sympathy. But my heart had long since gone cold. 30 years of love and sacrifice had been erased by his selfishness and betrayal. I ignored him and kept living my life. I worked in the garden each morning, drank tea alone in the yard each afternoon, and watched the sunset with Xiaobao every evening. But Lu Siming mistook my restraint for weakness. Before dawn on the 4th day, a loud crash jolted me awake. I threw on a coat, hurried to the window, and shook with anger at what I saw. He had smashed the stone lion by my gate and crushed the green onions and vegetables I had planted there, the fresh produce I grew especially to make Xiaobao his favorite eggs with scallions. I immediately pulled up the security footage, saved the recording of his vandalism, and called the village secretary. When the village secretary arrived, Lu Siming was still throwing a fit outside, calling me ungrateful and cruel. Seeing the wreckage, the secretary went pale with anger, had several people drag him aside, and tore into him. "Have you no shame? Auntie Guifin has done everything she could for you. You smashed her property and destroyed her garden. What kind of person does that?" Lu Ximing struggled and screamed back. "She's my mother. She has money and a house, so she should support me. She sent Wan to prison and took my home. I'll destroy everything she has." The village secretary refused to argue. He had Lu Ximing taken to the village office for a stern warning and told him the police would detain him if he caused trouble again. Lu Ximing stayed quiet for 2 days, but his resentment only grew. Then he started spreading rumors everywhere. At the village store and public square, he told anyone who would listen that I was an evil mother who stole her son's property, sent her daughter-in-law to prison, and left her son homeless. At first, some elderly villagers believed him and whispered that I was far too cruel for a woman my age. I didn't argue. Instead, I printed the evidence. Records showing he stole my pension, proof that Lin Wan framed me for stealing a necklace, and photos of the clay teapot they smashed. I posted everything on the village notice board, security stills, bank statements, and pawn receipts all in black and white. The villagers understood the truth immediately. Whenever they saw Lu Ximing, they pointed and called him an ungrateful son. The store owner threw him out and wouldn't even give him a cup of water. Even the village children called him the bad man. In an instant, Lu Ximing was completely alone. His hatred deepened, and he began planning something twisted. He knew Xiaobao was the person I loved most, so he targeted the child. One afternoon, Xiaobao and I were picking cherry tomatoes in the yard. The little boy skipped toward the fence to reach for a wildflower outside. Lu Ximing suddenly burst from the bushes and reached through the fence to grab him. "Xiaobao, come with Daddy, I'll take you to find Mommy." Xiaobao burst into tears and scrambled into my arms. My heart tightened. I rushed over, shielded him behind me, and stared Lu Ximing down. "Lu Ximing, touch my grandson and I'll make sure you spend years behind bars." His eyes were bloodshot, his face twisted with rage. "You won't let me live, so I won't let you live in peace. Xiaobao is my son, I have the right to take him." He reached through the fence again, but I had installed anti-climb spikes along the inside. The moment his hand came through, the spikes cut him. He cried out, yanked his hand back and stared at the blood with an even wilder look. "Chen Guifin, you're ruthless, just you wait." After that day, I finally let go of the last bit of hope I had for him. Then I had workers install HD security cameras around the yard, replaced every door and window lock with anti-theft locks, and added motion lights that would switch on at the slightest movement at night. I knew Lu Ximing had completely lost control. I had to protect Xiaobao and make sure he could never hurt the child. Sure enough, a few nights later, during a thunderstorm, Lu Ximing used the darkness and rain as cover to pry open my back door and sneak inside to take Xiaobao. Luckily, the motion lights snapped on and the security system sounded an alarm. I called the police immediately. When they arrived, he was standing there with a screwdriver, soaked from the rain and caught red-handed. For trespassing and intentionally damaging property, Lu Ximing was held by the police for 7 days. Those 7 days were miserable, but instead of reflecting on what he'd done, he blamed me for pushing him to the edge. After he got out, he had no money and couldn't even afford a meal, so he took a construction job. But I'd spoiled him his whole life, and he couldn't handle hard work. After 3 days, he quit and went back to drifting around, surviving by scavenging and begging. Desperate for cash, he crossed another line and stole rebar and building materials from a construction site. The site manager caught him, he ended up with a broken finger, and he was ordered to pay 5,000 yuan in damages. With nowhere else to turn, he thought of me again. He stopped causing scenes and started kneeling outside my villa every day, from morning until night. He bowed until his forehead bled, crying for forgiveness and begging me for money. Villagers passing by sometimes gave him a steamed bun out of pity, but I never opened the door. I just stood by the window, watching him kneel in the rain, looking utterly defeated. I felt no sympathy. He had chosen this path himself. The bond between us was already gone, from the moment he sided with Lin Wan and called me a thief, to stealing my retirement savings, to trying to hurt Xiaobao. When he was hungry, he dug through trash. When he was thirsty, he drank from puddles by the road. He became skin and bones, his hair matted and his body reeking. Yet he still felt no guilt. Instead, he called me heartless and said I didn't deserve to be his mother. Around that time, an old friend came to visit. When she saw Lu Ximing outside, she tried to talk me into helping him. "Guifin, he's still your biological son. Give him some money and send him away. Don't let him keep making a scene here." I lifted my teacup, gently blew the leaves aside, and answered calmly. "I gave him more chances than I can count, and he wasted every one. He stole my 800,000 yuan retirement fund. His wife destroyed my late husband's belongings. He terrorized my grandson. Whoever told him to show mercy? I'll spend the rest of my life raising Xiaobao. What happens to him is no longer my concern." My friend sighed and never brought it up again. When Lu Ximing realized begging on his knees wasn't working, he switched tactics. Every day, he lay across my gate and blocked the entrance. Whenever anyone came over, he'd grab their leg and cry that I was an unfilial, heartless mother. I had the village secretary send people to remove him, then made it clear to everyone that Lu Ximing and I had already severed our mother-son relationship. Whatever he did had nothing to do with me. Lu Ximing stayed outside my villa for half a month. With almost nothing to eat or drink, he endured endless stares and ridicule. He grew weaker by the day until he could barely stand, yet all he could think about was getting money. That was when he remembered his final bargaining chip, Xiaobao. He knew I would never abandon the boy, so he came up with a desperate plan to use Xiaobao against me. One day, while I was shopping in town, he slipped over to the kindergarten and tried to pick Xiaobao up. Luckily, the teachers recognized him, knew about our conflict, and refused to hand the child over. When he failed to take Xiaobao, Lu Ximing panicked. He knew this was his last chance. Without money, the construction boss would come after him, I would sue him, and he'd never recover. So he shamelessly called to threaten me, offering up Xiaobao's custody in exchange for money to pay his debts. My grip tightened around the phone. Lu Ximing had reached a new low. He was willing to use his own child as a bargaining chip for money. I took a deep breath and forced down my anger. Lu Ximing, this is extortion. Lu Ximing laughed as if he didn't care. Call it whatever you want. I've got nothing left to lose. You have 3 days. If I don't see the money, you'll never see your grandson again. Then he hung up. I stared at the dark screen, my expression turning cold. You want to play games? Fine, let's go all the way. I immediately called my lawyer. Attorney Zhang, prepare a lawsuit against Lu Ximing. We're recovering the 800,000 yuan and we're filing to transfer Xiaobao's custody. The courtroom felt heavy. Lu Ximing sat at the defendant's table, glaring at me with pure resentment. The judge struck the gavel. The plaintiff, Chen Guifan, is petitioning to change custody of her grandson, Lu Xiaobao. Please state your grounds. My lawyer stood and spoke in a clear, steady voice. Your Honor, while raising the child, defendant Lu Ximing and his spouse Lin Wan showed serious neglect and abuse. They failed to provide basic necessities and caused severe harm to the child's physical and emotional well-being. We request that custody be transferred to the plaintiff, Chen Guifan. Lu Ximing jumped to his feet and slammed the table. That's a lie. I'm his biological father. Why would I abuse my own child? You just want to steal him and smear my name. The judge replied coldly. Defendant, maintain order in this courtroom. My lawyer calmly submitted the evidence, and the first video began playing on the large screen. In the first clip, it was the middle of winter. Lu Ximing wore headphones and shouted at his game while his 6-month-old son sat alone in the living room, face red from the cold and crying desperately. Lu Ximing ignored him completely. In the second clip, Lin Wan ate expensive Japanese food while feeding her 1-year-old last night's leftovers. When the child spit it out, she said coldly, "Then don't eat. That's one less problem for me." The gallery erupted. The judge's expression tightened. Lu Ximing turned pale and stumbled through an excuse. It was a misunderstanding. I had headphones on. I didn't hear him. The lawyer ignored him and played the next recording. It was the call where Lu Ximing tried to extort me. Forget the 800,000 yuan, then give me another 500,000. Otherwise, I'll sell the child. When the recording ended, the courtroom went silent. The judge looked directly at Lu Ximing. Defendant, how do you explain this? Lu Ximing's knees nearly gave out. I was only trying to scare her. I never really planned to sell him. I stood and addressed the judge. Your Honor, the defendant has shown terrible judgment, has no income, and owes 800,000 yuan. His spouse is currently in prison. Giving him custody would put the child in danger. I own a home, have savings, and can care for Xiaobao. For the child's future, I ask the court to grant me custody. The court ruled on the spot. Lu Ximing and Lin Wan lost custody, Xiaobao would live with me, and Lu Ximing was ordered to repay the 800,000 yuan he had taken. Outside the courthouse, Lu Ximing collapsed on the steps, then scrambled toward me. Mom, let me see him once, just once. I stepped away from his reaching hand and said coldly, Lu Ximing, the moment you tried to trade your own child for money, you lost the right to call yourself a father. Never come near us again. Holding my grandson, I got into the car without looking back. 6 months later, the countryside air was fresh. I planted a vegetable garden and Xiaobao chased butterflies nearby, his laughter bright and clear. Those 6 months were peaceful and full. News about Lu Ximing and Lin Wan still reached me now and then. To repay the 800,000 yuan, Lu Ximing borrowed from loan sharks and secretly used Lin Wan's family home as collateral. When Lin Wan got out of prison, lenders surrounded her. Only then did she learn she had no house, no car, and a mountain of debt she could never repay. She stormed into Lu Ximing's run-down basement room and started a huge fight. They blamed each other until everything finally fell apart. They signed divorce papers on the spot and went their separate ways for good. Later, Lin Wan tried to marry into money and got involved with a wealthy man in his 60s. His wife caught them together. The scandal spread everywhere, and a video went viral. Lin Wan could no longer stay in the city and fled back to her hometown in disgrace. Lu Ximing was left with scars and a criminal record, so no respectable employer would hire him. He tried construction again but couldn't handle the work and soon quit. Then he turned to gambling, hoping for one lucky comeback. Instead, he lost more and more. Eventually, the lenders came after him, and an attack left one leg permanently disabled. From then on, he could only walk with crutches and beg beneath an overpass. Grandma Scallion! My grandson's sweet little voice pulled me from my thoughts. He proudly held up a freshly picked scallion and offered it to me. I smiled, took them from him, and ruffled his hair. Great job, buddy! Then I carried the scallions into the kitchen, chopped them up, cracked in 2 farm-fresh eggs, and fried everything until golden and crisp. The smell filled the whole house in seconds. I had just stepped into the yard with the scallion scrambled eggs when a harsh scraping noise came from outside the gate. I turned around. Clinging to the iron fence was a man in filthy, torn clothes. His hair was a dusty mess. A long scar cut across his face, and his dull eyes stared into the yard. His eyes locked onto the scallion scrambled eggs in my hands. He swallowed hard, his cracked lips twitching, but not a sound came out. I stood there and quietly looked at him, the son I had devoted my entire life to, only for him to betray me so viciously in the end. After a long silence, I picked up a bite of egg flecked with scallions and gently fed it to my grandson. Then I took his hand and headed inside. Come on, buddy. It's windy out here. Let's go eat. Without relatives who only drained me dry, my life could only get better. The moment I reached the entryway, frantic pounding erupted behind me. Lu Ximing screamed in a hoarse, desperate voice, "Mom, I know I was wrong. I really do. Open the door. I'm starving. Xiaobao, I'm your dad. Please ask Grandma to give me something to eat." Xiaobao shrank into my arms, clutching the corner of my shirt so tightly that he did not dare move. I gently patted his back and kept walking. In the kitchen, I set the scallion scrambled eggs on the table and served him a warm bowl of millet porridge. I soothed him softly. "It's okay, sweetheart. Let's eat. Ignore the noise outside." I knew Xiaobao had questions, but he was far too young to be dragged into such ugly family history. None of it deserved to become a shadow over his childhood. The pounding grew louder. Lu Ximing slammed against the iron gate like he had lost his mind, sending the sparrows in the yard scattering. I picked up my phone and calmly called the village chief. "Chief Wang, could you come to my house? There's a man causing trouble at my gate and disturbing me and the child." Then I hung up. I went right back to quietly eating with Xiaobao. The shouting and crying outside had nothing to do with me anymore. 30 years of sacrifice and 3 years of giving him everything had bought me insults, false accusations, blackmail, and even my own grandson being used as leverage. The bond between mother and son had ended the moment he threatened me with a knife. I had nothing left to hold on to. Less than 10 minutes later, the village chief hurried over with 2 villagers and immediately recognized the miserable man at my gate as Lu Ximing. Months earlier, word that Lu Ximing was being pursued in court over his debts had spread through every nearby village. Everyone knew what an ungrateful son he was. "Lu Ximing, what are you doing here? Auntie Guifan has already done more than enough for you, and you still dare come back and harass her?" The village chief frowned and snapped at him, his voice full of disgust. When Lu Ximing saw people arriving, he cried even harder. He dropped to his knees and repeatedly struck his forehead against the ground until it began to bleed. "Chief, I'm her biological son. She can't abandon me. She has money and a house while I have to beg for food. She's heartless." The village chief gave a cold laugh and pointed straight at him. "Do you think we are blind? Your mother bought you a home and car and gave you 20,000 yuan a month. You and your wife called her a thief, framed her over a necklace, smashed her late husband's keepsakes, stole 800,000 yuan of her retirement money, and even used your child for cash. You call yourself a son?" More and more villagers gathered around, pointing at Lu Ximing. Every voice condemned him. Lu Ximing turned red with shame, but he still refused to leave. He lay on the ground, gripping the gate, greedily staring toward the kitchen as the smell of food drifted out. He had been hungry for too long. Scraps from under the overpass were never enough. Now, smelling a real home-cooked meal, he wanted nothing more than to rush inside and devour it. I carried Xiaobao, full and tired from playing, to the window and gave Lu Ximing one calm glance. Lu Ximing instantly acted as if he had found his last lifeline and began begging desperately, bowing his head to the ground. Blood ran down his forehead as he cried, "Mom, I'll never do it again. I'll be a better man. Just give me food and somewhere to stay. I'll do anything for you." I looked at his bleeding head, filthy torn clothes, and injured leg. I felt no pity at all, only a cold, empty calm. "Lu Ximing, you chose this road one step at a time. I gave you chance after chance, and every time you pushed me closer to the edge. When you called me a thief, framed me for stealing the necklace, and used Xiaobao to threaten me, did you ever think this day would come? I owe you nothing and I won't support you for the rest of your life." With that, I slowly closed the curtains, shutting every cry, plea, and apology out of my world. Seeing that my decision was final, the village chief had the villagers carry Lu Ximing out to the roadside beyond the village. As they took him away, his anguished cries echoed back from a distance, full of despair and regret. But they could no longer stir even the slightest emotion in me. In the days that followed, Lu Ximing sometimes wandered near the village, watching from afar as Xiaobao and I tended the garden. I never acknowledged him. I simply kept living my peaceful life. We planted vegetables in spring, admired flowers in summer, picked fruit in fall, and warmed ourselves by the fire in winter. Under my care, Xiaobao grew healthy, cheerful, and adorable. He called me Grandma in his sweet little voice, stood on tiptoe to help weed and water the flowers, and picked tiny scallions from the garden, proudly saying he would cook scallion scrambled eggs for me. Sometimes my old friends visited and could not help asking, "Are you really never going to help Lu Ximing again?" I would gently shake my head and smile. I can't fix him, and I don't want to try anymore. People have to live with their choices. He chose greed and selfishness, so he has to face the consequences. I only want to spend the rest of my life with my grandson and live in peace. As the sun set, golden light spilled softly across the yard. Xiaobao hugged my leg, pointed at the bright green scallions, and grinned. "Grandma, the scallions are all grown up. Can we make scrambled eggs with scallions?" I crouched down, pulled him into my arms, kissed his soft forehead, and said warmly, "Of course. Grandma will make you the best scrambled eggs with scallions ever." By the distant roadside, Lu Ximing stood on crutches, silently watching the warm, peaceful scene. At last, he lowered his head, and one weary tear fell heavily into the dirty soil. Only then did he finally understand. He had lost far more than money and a house. He had lost the mother who loved him more than anyone and gave him everything. He had lost the peaceful, happy life he could have had, and he had no one to blame but himself. Sadly, there's no such thing as a rewind button in life. I picked up Xiaobao, walked into the warm, brightly lit house, and gently closed the door. I shut every regret, humiliation, heartache, and toxic entanglement outside. No more children draining me dry, no more endless schemes and arguments. At last, my later years were peaceful and happy. That 5 UN bunch of scallions became the blade that cut my toxic ties and the first step toward my new life. From then on, I had fresh air, family by my side, simple meals, and peaceful days. No more chaos, just a quiet, steady life. I thought Lu Siming was finally gone from our lives for good. But greed is far harder to kill than I ever imagined. One morning, Xiaobao and I were watering the garden. He crouched beside the scallions, gently touching the leaves like they were precious treasures. I was just about to praise him when the woman from the village store came rushing over, looking deeply worried. Guifan, hurry! Lu Siming is blocking the school children at the village entrance. He says you're his mother, so you owe him money, and if you don't pay, he won't let them pass. The watering can slipped from my hand and hit the ground with a clang. Startled, Xiaobao grabbed my shirt. Grandma, what's wrong? I crouched down and hugged him, my voice steadier than I expected. It's okay. Grandma just needs to handle something. Stay in the yard, be good, and don't go outside. I locked the gate and headed straight for the village entrance. From a distance, I saw Lu Siming leaning on his crutch and blocking the road. His hair was a mess, his clothes were still in tatters, and his face wore the defiant look of a man with nothing left to lose. Several children with backpacks stood frozen in fear while their parents watched, furious but silent. The moment Lu Siming saw me, his eyes lit up. He straightened on his crutch and spoke in a hoarse, shamelessly entitled voice. Mom, finally, give me some money. I only need 200 yuan. I haven't eaten in 2 days. I stopped a few steps away and stared at him coldly. I'm not giving you any money. His expression changed instantly, hurt and furious at the same time. I'm your own son. You live in a fancy house and eat well while I'm out here begging. How can you be so heartless? I stepped forward. I didn't raise my voice, but the entire crowd fell silent. I bought you a house and car and gave you 20,000 yuan a month. Your wife called me a thief and you joined her. She framed me for stealing a necklace, and you believed her. You stole 800,000 yuan from my retirement fund to buy her brother a home, then used Xiaobao to threaten me for hush money. Lu Siming, when did you ever act like a son? More and more villagers gathered. Some sighed in disbelief, others openly cursed him. Lu Siming's face went red, then pale. Humiliated, he exploded. You owe me that money. You gave birth to me, so you have to support me. If you don't pay, I'll block this entrance every day. Let's see how you show your face around here. Calmly, I pulled out my phone and held the screen toward him. I recorded everything. You harassed the villagers and stopped children from going to school. This time, I'm not letting it slide. The second he realized I truly meant to call the police, he panicked so badly he nearly dropped his crutch. Mom, I was wrong. I was starving and lost my mind. I'll never do it again. Don't call the police. I'm leaving right now. He scrambled away on his crutch, limping into the distance without even daring to look back. The villagers gathered around to comfort me, saying I had done the right thing. You can't give someone like that an inch. The more he gets, the more he wants. I thanked everyone and went home. Xiaobao was still sitting obediently in the yard, waiting for me. When he saw me, he ran over, hugged my leg, and asked, Grandma, is the bad man gone? He's gone. He'll never come back to scare you again. I picked him up, and for the first time, my heart was completely at peace. From that day on, Lu Siming never dared show his face in the village again. I heard he went to a shelter in Lin Town, doing odd jobs by day and sleeping there at night. Life was hard, but he no longer dared scheme against anyone. People occasionally saw him in town, always staring at the ground. If he spotted someone who looked like me, he would immediately hide, as if running from a nightmare. I felt no sympathy. He chose that road himself. I gave him chance after chance, and every time he pushed me farther away. Life grew sweeter. In spring, the scallions turned bright green, and every day Xiaobao carefully picked one and handed it to me. In summer, the grape arbor cast a cool patch of shade. I held him beneath it and told stories while the leaves rustled in the breeze. In autumn, the fruit ripened in the yard. Xiaobao and I filled basket after basket, then shared them with the village elders and children. In winter, the stove kept the house warm. I made him scallion eggs and thick, fragrant millet porridge. He slowly grew up, first kindergarten, then elementary school. He was polite and thoughtful, and his teachers always praised him. He never asked who the uncle adults occasionally mentioned was, and he never softened toward strangers waiting outside our gate. He only knew Grandma loved him most, and Grandma's scallion eggs were the best. Piece by piece, I repaired the broken clay teapot my late husband had left behind. I placed it where I could always see it, not because I still held on to hate, but to remind myself that however painful the past was, it was over. I would no longer suffer for anyone or beg anyone to change. During the holidays, my old friends came to visit. Seeing me healthy and full of energy, they laughed and said, "Now this is truly living well." They were right. I spent the first half of my life giving everything to my children and ended up covered in scars. In the second half, I raised my grandson, tended my garden, cooked simple meals, and lived in peace. This was the life I deserved. One evening, Xiaobao came home from school, dropped his backpack, and ran straight to the garden to pick the freshest scallions. He rushed into the kitchen, beaming, "Grandma, I picked today's scallions. Let's make scallion eggs." Smiling, I washed and chopped them, then cracked in 2 golden farm-fresh eggs. The moment they hit the hot oil, the whole house filled with their aroma. I carried the dish outside. The sunset spilled across the yard, filling my heart with warmth. Xiao Bao sat on his little stool, happily eating from his bowl, his cheeks puffed out with every bite. Grandma's eggs are the best in the whole world. I crouched beside him and gently wiped the oil from the corner of his mouth. My heart had never felt so safe. At the distant crossroads, Lu Ximing would sometimes stop and watch the lights in our yard and the silhouettes of Xiao Bao and me. But he never came closer again. At last he understood that what he had lost could never be recovered in this lifetime. But I had already cut every toxic tie, released every wound, and found the peaceful life that truly belonged to me, all in the comforting scent of those scallions. A soft breeze drifted outside and dinner filled the house with warmth. From then on, my years were peaceful and free of resentment, with scallions, hot porridge, and my sweet grandson by my side. That was the happiest ending I could ask for.